All right, so we are picking up Emer Hashem on Nun Dalet base 54b, and I believe we left off with Evan Shiyashav Ala Moshe. Right? Does that look correct? So that is in the wide lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So remember again, going through all the different miraculous places where if you see them, you make a bracha. So ve'evan sheyashav ala Moshe. So what's the stone that Moshe Rabbeinu sat on? What is that a reference to? D'chsev ve'idei Moshe kvedim vayikchu evan vayasimu tachtav vayeshev ala. The Moshe Rabbeinu's hands were heavy. They took a stone, they placed it underneath him, and Moshe Rabbeinu sat on it. So the idea was this taught the war with Amalek. So this is quite literally again the stone that supported Moshe Rabbeinu during the war with Amalek. The Ishto Shalot, the wife of Lot, Shneimar Vatabit Ishto Me'achorov Vatinetziv Melach. So if you see the pillar of salt that became Lot's wife, or Lot's wife who became a pillar of salt, so then Haloch Lamais, you also say a bracha. Says the Gemara. So we'll come back to that in just a moment. V'chomas Yericho Shenivla, and if you see the wall of Yericho which was swallowed up into the earth, Tichsiv Vatipal HaChoma Tachtel, that the wall literally again fell down underneath it. So the Gemara says, I just a question. So all of these other examples, right? All of these things are all miracles that occurred. The wife of Lot is not a miracle. The wife of Lot is actually something negative which occurred. So like what's the pshat with this? Why would you, in other words, the whole chap over here is all of this is bracha over miraculous events. And here you're saying you're making a bracha over the pillar of salt that was the wife of Lot, but that's not a miracle. That's something catastrophic. That's loss that occurred. To which the Gemara says, you're right. The Amr Baruch Dayan HaEmes. You're right. If you see the pillar of salt that was Lot's wife, you don't make Baruch Sha'asa Lanu Neis B'Makom Hazeh. You're not making a bracha over a miracle. Rather, you're making a Baruch Dayan HaEmes. Baruch Dayan HaEmes over the loss of Lot's wife. But that's not what it says in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is talking about, again, brachas that you make over miraculous and good things. Tani al Lot va'al ishto mevarchim shtayim. This is incredible. For Lot and his wife, you make two different brachas. In other words, when you come to that spot where you see the pillar of salt that was Lot's wife, you make two brachas. One for his wife, and one for Lot. This is a very frum couple. Separate brachas, right? Separate brachas for Lot and separate brachas for his wife. So the Gemara says, what are the brachas? Al ishta omer baruch ta'ana emes, for Mrs. Lot, you say baruch ta'ana emes because she died. Va'al Lot omer baruch zocher tzadikim. And for Lot, you say the bracha of baruch zocher tzadikim. Now we don't have this bracha. But the Gemara has this bracha that you thank Hashem for remembering the tzaddikim even in times of adversity. That here everything was being destroyed, but in the midst of all of this destruction, the Ribono Shel Olam, quote unquote, remembered Lot and saved him from all of the destruction. Amr Rabbi Yochanan, afilu b'shas kaiso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu zocher tzaddikim. So Rabbi Yochanan says, even at a time of divine wrath, Hashem always remembers the tzaddikim. Shneimar vahiba shaches elokim es aria kikar vayiskar elokim es Avram vayishlach es Lot mitoch ha'afecha. That here Hashem was destroying He was destroying all the surrounding areas, and yet in the midst of all of this, He remembered Avram Avinu, and in the schus of His relationship with Avram, He saved Lot. So interestingly enough, so you come to this spot where Lot's wife turned to a pillar of salt. It's like that pivotal moment. For her, it's a Dayana Emes. For him, it's a bracha of thank you Hashem for the salvation, for remembering the tzaddikim. Incredible. So the Gemara goes weiter. And if you come to the place, to the spot where the walls of Yericho were swallowed up, so the Gemara says, 1 second. The walls of Yericho, I was remembering, we were talking about this before. Yericho was the first city, the first battle that Yoshua led us in when we entered into Eretz Yisrael. That's how I will say, again, if you come, Rachman Islam, this terror attack was right by the Allenby Bridge. Right, on the Allenby Bridge yesterday. And again, a little bit, if you're driving from Yerushalayim, right, take the Jordan Valley Road 90. So before you get to the Allenby Bridge, there's this place I mentioned last week, Ras Al Yahud. So for the Christians, it's also they hold that it's a holy site. But according to many, that's the spot where Klal Yisrael crossed the Yarden. So they crossed the Jordan. Well, incredibly enough, if you ever go to that spot and you look behind you, right behind you is Yericho. So clearly, Klal Yisrael crossed through the Jordan River, across the Jordan River, and the first battle is at Yericho. So now the Gemara talks about that if you come to the place, now the Gemara says, the Navi says that Yericho was Sagura Musugaris. Yericho was closed off. It had a very high wall, an impenetrable wall. So the miracle occurred is that the walls of Yericho sank into the ground, were swallowed up to the ground. So the Gemara says, 1 second. The walls of Yericho were swallowed up, Vahanafla. The walls of Yericho fell. They weren't swallowed, they fell. Shnei Amar, Vayikishma Ames Kala Shofar, Vayariu Ha'am Trua Gidola, Vatipal Hachoma Tachtel. The pasuk says that the wall fell, not that it was absorbed, not that it was swallowed up. Kevan defusya beruma kiadadi. Well, since here was the issue, since the wall of Yericho, the height and the width were the same, so the Gemara said mishum hachi ivloi ivluye. Because the height and the width were the same, it would have been impossible for the wall to fall over. So instead, what ended up happening? The walls sunk into the ground. Incredible. So if you come to that spot where the walls of Yericho sunk into the ground, you say the bracha Baruch Sha'asa Lanu Neis b'makom hazeh, or Sha'asa Lanu Seinu Neis b'makom hazeh. I'm Rabbi Yudam Rav. Arbal Tzrichen hold us. We'll say beautiful Gemara over here, very important Gemara. 4 people have to give gratitude. Now we'll say the truth is the real way to read that Gemara is Kulam Tzrichen Lahodos. Everyone has to give gratitude. Everyone has to give gratitude. There are 4 people who have to bench Gomel. Right? A Yid, remember again, we're called Yehudim from the Lashon of Yehuda. Hapam Odes Hashem Le'emen, who says, this time I'll thank Hashem. The core characteristic of a Jew is gratitude, is the ability to say thank you. But there are 4 people who have to specifically bench Hagomel, the bracha of Hagomel. Who are they? Yardei Hayam, Holchem Mibaros, so sea travelers. I always say, takes on a whole new meaning, especially after all of the Agarata we had in Daf Yomi, right, with sea travel. You begin to appreciate why you have to bench Gomel after you have sea travel. Holchem Midbaros, those who travel in the desert. Umisha Yechola ben Isrape, someone who was ill and was healed. Umisha Yechashu beis Asurim, and someone who was incarcerated. So these people, you traveled by sea, you traveled in the desert, you were sick, obviously really sick and healed, or incarcerated. All of these people, when they are delivered from their difficult circumstances, are obligated to recite the bracha of Hagomel. Okay? So the Gemara says, now the Gemara goes through each of these. Yardei Hayam, how do we know that if someone engages in sea travel, that they're obligated to go ahead and bench Gomel? Where does that come from? Tichsev Yardei Hayam ba'anios, Heima ra'o ma'aseh Hashem, va'omer. First of the widest lines are both say, V'omer vayamo ruach sar yalu shamayim yerdu tovos, V'omer yachogu v'yanu kishigar, V'omer vayitzaku el Hashem batzar lahem, umtzukos hem yotzi'im, V'omer yakum sar ladmama, V'omer v'yisluchu ki yishtoku, V'omer yodu la Hashem chazdo, V'niflosav livnei adam. So we'll say, so all these different psukim talking about sea travel, and then the last pasuk says, Yodu la Hashem chazdo, they will give gratitude, give thanks to Hashem for His chesed, for His kindness, V'niflosav livnei adam, and His wondrous acts that He performs for man. Okay, that's number 1. Next. Holchem Mibaros Minalan. How do you know that if you travel by deserts, you have to say Berachos Hagomel T'chsev Tov B'mir B'Shimon Derech Ir Moshav Lo Matzo Vayitzaku El Hashem Vayadrichim B'Derech Yishara Yodu LaHashem Chazdo. Okay, so we'll say, so the point over here is by these different psukim, you have the mention of the event and then the phrase Yodu LaHashem Chazdo. Give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Next, Misha Chala Ben Isrape, someone who is sick and was then healed, has to bench Gomel T'chsev Avili miderech pisham o me'avonosem yisanu kol ha'ochel tesayv nafshem vayizaku el Hashem batzar lahem yishlach devara vayir pa'im yodu LaHashem chasdo. Okay, juxtaposition. The Gemara goes weiter. Misha chash beis asurin, someone who was incarcerated, right? Someone who was incarcerated. Zev, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. Just yeah, good. Right? I have to bring out the Maram Komos. Okay. So the Gemara says as follows. Misha chash beis asurin. So ultimately, again, someone who was incarcerated, person who was incarcerated also has to go ahead and recite Hagomel. Where does that come from? Minalan T'chsev Yoshvei Choshech V'Samavas Ki Himru Imrei Kel V'Omer Vayikana Ba'amal Libam V'Omer Vayizakol Hashem Esralem V'Omer Yotzi Mechoshev V'Samavas V'Omer Yodu LaHashem Chazdo. So the point over here is you see the theme, right? You see the theme that again Pasuk mentions the event and then adds in the phrase Yodu LaHashem Chazdo. Give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So from here you see that you have to give thanks to Hashem for each of these things. From Tehillim, correct. Correct. All of these psukim, almost all of these psukim are from Tehillim. Yes, correct. So we'll say, what's the bracha? So now we've established if you go on sea travel, or if you travel in the desert, or if you're sick and were healed, or if you were incarcerated, right? On these cases, you have to recite a bracha of thanksgiving to Hashem. What's the bracha? My mevarech. So Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda, Baruch Gomel Chasadim Tovim. Blessed are you, Hashem, who literally again bestows chesed, bestows charitable acts or charitable, bestows kindness upon us. I will say now, of course, our bracha of Hagomel is a little bit different, right? Our bracha is Hagomel lechayavim tovos shegamalani kol tov, which literally means Hagomel lechayavim tovos, that Chadosh Baruch Hu bestows goodness even upon those who are chayavim. Chayavim means maybe I don't deserve the good, right? Hagomel lechayavim tovos. And this keeps on bestowing good. So just the essence is the same, but the bracha changed a little bit over time. Okay, that's the bracha. Abaye Amar, Abaye says, this is interesting, the bracha of Hagomel has to be recited in the presence of 10 people. You need a minyan for Berachos Hagomel, which is quite fascinating. Dichsiv v'yiramemuha b'kal Hashem. Because the pasuk says, literally again, they will give praise or they will give thanks in the assembly of Hashem. So that Bekal ultimately represents the idea that it's a minyan. Okay. Marzutra Amar V'trein Mehun Rabbanon. Marzutra says, out of the 10, 2 have to be Rabbanim. 2 have to be Talmidei Chachamim. Why? Shneimar over Moshav Zikenim Yehalaluhu. Because the pasuk says, in the midst, literally in the assembly of Zikenim. I will say now, Zakanim you could easily translate as an old person, but of course we know Zakanim really means Ze Shekana Chachma, a person who acquired wisdom. So you need a minyan, and Marzutra says 2 out of the minyan should be Talmidei Chachamim. Maskef Ravashi ve'ima kulu Rabbanon. Maybe all 10 should be Rabbanim, right? Maybe all 10 should be Rabbanim. Why just 2? Miksiv Bikal Zakanim. Does it say Bikal Zakanim in a kal, in an assembly of Zakanim? No, it doesn't say that. Rather what? Bikal Amksiv. It says ultimately again in an assembly of the nation. Assembly of the nation. Maybe it means you should say it in front of a minyan of 10 people and add 2 more Talmidei Chachamim, to which the Gemara says Kasha. That's a good question. That is a good question. All right, I'll say one more line. Rabbi Yehuda Chalash Ve'espach. Rabbi Yehuda was ill, and then Baruch Hashem he recovered. All the Gabei Rav Chana Bagarata v'Rabbanon. So what happens? So Rav Chana Bagarata and the Rabbanon came to visit him. So Rabbi Yehuda was ill. Baruch Hashem he recovered, and again the Rav Chana Bagarata and the Rabbanon came to visit him. Amrulei, they said to him, Baruch Rachmana Diyavach Nehilan V'lo Yavach La'afra. So this is interesting. They gave him a bracha. What did they say to him? Baruch Hashem, that the Ribono Shel Olam has given you to us and has not given you to the dirt. Don't do that, right? That's not that. In other words, that you understand the sentiment, right? The sentiment is Baruch Hashem, you were healed and you didn't die. Thank you, Hashem, that He gave you to us and then He gave you to the dirt. Arulahan. So it's interesting. So remember again. So Rabbi Yehuda said, "Patrison yaseh miladuye." You have exempted me from the obligation I have to bench gomel. In other words, that bracha itself, that was like gomel. But Abaye said, you have to do it in front of 10 people. There were 10 people present. But Rabbi Yehuda himself didn't say the bracha. Right? The other Rabbanim said the bracha. Rabbi Yehuda himself didn't say the bracha. It's okay because he answered Amen afterwards. And since he answered Amen, remember again, one answers Amen, it's like Shemea Ka'ona. So again, therefore, one goes to say Amen, it's as if they said the bracha themselves, and therefore he discharged his obligation of Hagomel with the bracha that they said, and then ultimately, again, him answering Amen to their bracha. All right, we'll stop over here for today. What Gemara? What incredible Gemara. Shkoyach. Everyone's invited to stay till Hilchos Shabbos. We'll begin in just a moment. Shkoyach. Same time here at Tashav tomorrow as well.